You know, we always talk about the stress of residency as this huge psychological burden. But what if I told you it's actually a biological process, one that's physically remodeling the very organ you rely on for everything, your brain?
And that idea, that big shift in thinking, comes from the incredible work of neuroscientist Bruce McEwen. His research totally changed the game, transforming our view of stress from just a feeling into a real, physical force that can literally change your brain's architecture.
So, here's what we're going to cover in this explainer. We're going to walk through the neuroscience of stress, all based on McEwen's foundational work. We'll look at how stress changes the brain, which parts are most vulnerable during residency, and, this is the most important part, what you can actually do about it.
Okay, first things first. We need to get a core concept on the table, one that McEwen helped make a central pillar of modern neuroscience. Your brain is not fixed. It's not static.
What he showed was that stress hormones, like cortisol, aren't just floating around in your system. Nope. They're powerful neuromodulators that get right into your brain. And once they're in there, they directly affect the circuits that are absolutely critical for memory, for emotional regulation, and for all those executive functions you rely on every single day on the wards.
So, how does the brain handle all this? You know, the constant demands of life, and especially residency. And when does that coping mechanism start to, well, become damaging? McEwen gave us two really crucial concepts to understand this: allostasis and allostatic load.
Think of allostasis as your body's superpower for adapting on the fly. It's the neurobiology that lets you stay sharp during a 30-hour call or quickly pick up a new procedure. It's this essential process of finding stability by changing to meet the demand. It's supposed to be protective.
But here's the catch. What happens when those demands just don't stop? When your stress response is always on and just can't shut down? Well, that adaptation starts to come at a huge biological cost, and that is what we call allostatic load. It's the cumulative wear and tear on your brain and body, and it's the key link between the chronic stress of residency and the risk for burnout, depression, and even physical health problems down the line.
Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. What does this wear and tear actually look like inside your brain at the circuit level? Because high allostatic load isn't just something that happens to you, it's an active process of brain remodeling. And McEwen's work pinpointed 3 key areas that get hit.
And when you look at this table, the picture it paints is, well, it's pretty striking. And it probably sounds familiar. Your prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, the parts for thinking, planning, and learning, they get weaker. At the same time, your amygdala, your brain's threat detector, it gets stronger, more reactive. This is the neurobiological signature of burnout. It maps directly onto those feelings of brain fog, not being able to remember things, feeling emotionally frazzled, and just constantly being on edge.
And this is so important to get. When you or one of your colleagues feels overwhelmed, foggy, and anxious, you are literally describing a predictable shift in your brain's wiring. This isn't a failure of willpower. It's not about not being tough enough. It's a structural and functional change driven by high allostatic load.
Okay, I know, that all sounds pretty grim, right? But here's where the story takes a turn. And this is probably the most powerful and hopeful part of McEwen's work. Because the brain is plastic, these changes are not a life sentence.
You see that wear and tear we've been talking about? It isn't a metaphor, it's literal. At a microscopic level, the little branches on your neurons that are supposed to connect to other neurons, they're called dendrites, they actually pull back and shrink. You're physically losing connection points, especially in the hippocampus. But, and this is a huge but, this is where that idea of plasticity becomes so hopeful. When you change the inputs, when you reduce the stress and add in restorative things, those same neurons can regrow their branches. Your brain has this amazing built-in capacity to repair itself. So the real question becomes, how do we help it do that?
So that brings us to the most practical part. What can you actually do about it? These aren't just fuzzy wellness tips. These are targeted, neuroscience-backed interventions designed to reverse the exact circuit changes that chronic stress causes.
Okay, let's break these down because each one is like a targeted prescription for your brain. Things like mindfulness and even just slow, deep breathing. That directly helps to calm down that hyperactive amygdala. Sleep, absolutely crucial for cleaning up your synapses and locking in memories. Exercise is one of the best ways to boost a chemical that literally helps you grow new brain cells and strengthen those thinking circuits. And social connection, it's a powerful buffer against that whole stress hormone cascade. These are tools to actively remodel your brain for the better.
So what's the bottom line here? The big takeaway is all about agency.
It's about taking back control. Understanding how allostatic load works doesn't just explain the problem. It gives you a clear roadmap for building resilience. Your brain is designed to respond to your environment. So if you change the inputs, you change the brain.
And that leaves us with a really critical question. And this isn't for your patients. This one's for you. In this incredibly demanding job, your brain is changing with every single shift, every patient, every night on call. You now have the science and the tools to make sure those changes build resilience, not burnout. So the question is, what inputs are you going to give your brain today? What kind of brain are you choosing to build?